Nice big juicy dendrobina to start with. Hopefully a fish is going to snaffle that up. Might be a perch, might be a skimmer. Right then, we are into the second Q&A session, and I've come to the canal. I've just fed a dollop of chopped worm. It looks like I'm fishing, well, I am fishing down the middle, but actually the shaft's just going up where I'm fishing. The deepest water is probably a third this way. So I'm just going up, just out of that slightly deeper water as it's going up to the far shaft, but it shallows up to nothing here, very narrow, it's probably only 30 metres wide, and out of that today there's probably only sort of 9 metres of fishable water. But I've been itching to go back on the canal and do a bit of chopped worm fishing. I've walked several bits of canal recently and the colours has looked brilliant, like an emerald green, lovely tinge, but that lovely clarity that you know you're going to catch some fish in. Well, today, everywhere I've looked, it's got a horrible milky colour, really milky. We've had a lot of rain last night, a lot of cold rain, very cold start to the morning. The prospects aren't great, but we're going to give it a go. We've got some nice smelly chopped worms. Hopefully we'll attract a few predators, maybe even some skimmers or roach or whatever else is about. But we might not get a bite. So that's where we are. That's the fishing tactics sorted. On to the Q&As. I've had loads of questions and I've got plenty of unanswered questions from the first time I asked for some questions. So we're going to fire away and we'll just put that back in the right spot. We'll fire away and start answering a few questions, line it up with that leaf. Right. You never know, we might catch something nice. I say I'm fishing chopped worm. I have got a few casters with me, but to be honest, with this clarity of water, I'm not expecting to catch anything other than some worms. But we'll try and keep an eye on that flow and keep twitching it about and we'll see what we can catch. Right then, question number 1. Oh, this is from Art Hennekes, or Hennix. He's from Holland, so apologies for not pronouncing your surname or your first name right. What do you think is the impact of the pole above the fish? Will it spook them, and if so, in what conditions? Well, absolutely, a pole definitely can spook the fish. The obvious answer is if it's in clear water, you're going to spook the fish in clear water. If they can see the pole, then you're going to spook them. So fishing in very, very shallow water, or when it's clear, or very, very bright sunny conditions like today, but today there's plenty of colour in the water, so that's not going to be such a problem. But yeah, definitely clear water and fishing shallow are when you'll spook the fish. And also if there's not loads of fish about, just odd fish, you know, obviously the more fish in your peg, the more they'll compete and the less spooked they'll get. So so they're the conditions. And on a commercial shallow fishing, to overcome it, use a longer line. For proper carp, I've got no problem using a good metre of line above my float, and just literally flicking it around my peg way past my pole tip and down the margins, and in a very shallow far bank swims, if it's like a foot deep, no problem fishing a really long line in those conditions either. So places like Larford, where you've got a nice sandy sort of beachy bank down the margins, you can see them coming in, you can almost see the backs coming out of the water, but you need that longer line to stop the carp spooking. They've been caught many a time, they know what a pole is. And sometimes you've got to come in from the bank out rather than swing your pole around that way. You've got to sort of sneak your rig in that way. So and the ways to overcome it as well is obviously you can use a rod and line sometimes as well. So I've definitely had conditions when a waggler's been better than a pole over the heads, and also underarming a feeder onto the pole line when they don't want a pole over their heads. That's another option. So so yeah, I think a pole can spook them. And obviously there's a massive popularity in ghost kits and white kits, and I paint all my carp top kits with white for the similar reason really. I just don't want to spook the fish, and anything that can sort of reduce its silhouette, you're not going to reduce a shadow, that's impossible, but anything that's going to reduce its silhouette, then it is a bonus. I've got a white top kit on today. That's purely because I'm fishing 8 to 10 slick and they're my F1 kits. So we don't know what we're going to hook today. So I want a beefy-ish elastic. Got to set the hook in those perch. You don't know what you're going to hook today. So might be nothing, but I've had pike and everything from this stretch, so on worms, so we'll see. So next question. This is from Gareth Evans. I fish a few of the natural venues I've seen on your videos, like the Thames. Would you use a fish meal ground bait on a feeder line, or just stick to one natural mix for pole and feeder? Yeah, that's a really good question. I use two different mixes. When I'm fishing the pole, I'm generally after roach, maybe some skimmers and hybrids and things, but generally roach is the main target. And I like a nice dark, soily, hempy, sort of claggy mix that can pack with particles like hemp and casters and maybe a few pinkies and things. And I like a nice roachy mix, you know, so it's got hemp and maybe coriander and just all sorts of things that are attractive to roach, but not loads and loads of feed content. It's more about getting the bait down and so you can run your pole rig over the top. For bream, on the other hand, if I was feeder fishing, oh, caught a leaf. If I was feeder fishing, then generally you want, I'm after bream. So I would, in that case, I'm just going to go a bit more over depth. Yeah, so if I was feeder fishing, then generally I'm after bream, and I want a breamy mix. And generally for me, a big part of my mix will be brown crumb, because bream love brown crumb. And also, you've mentioned fish meal. Now, I definitely would use fish meal. A lot of people think it's because a lot of carp anglers and barbel anglers and that are targeting these rivers now. But in my experience, I just think bream love fish meal. Whether they've seen it before or not, they just love it. So, so yeah, I think fish meal is great, and I would definitely put a third to half of my mix as fish meal. Something like swim stim. I've also used Dynamite bream fish meal as well. They do a bream mix, which is quite a sweet mix, or a traditional sweet mix, and then they do one called bream fish meal, and that's been quite good for me as well. So yeah, I had two different mixes: a nice dark, claggy, soily mix for roach, and quite a bready, fish mealy sort of a lighter mix as well. I definitely prefer lighter colours for my bream mixes. Yeah, sort of brown or yellow mixes for bream. I think quality fish come over lighter mixes, whereas smaller fish like roach prefer a darker mix. So that's my theories. Right. This is from Andrew Tidmarsh, although I've had no end of people ask me, hello John, how do you like the Daiwa pole? Well, he's referring to the Daiwa Masters that I won, and I won a £6,000 pole, so which was very, very nice, a nice prize. Now obviously I'm a matrix consultant, so I couldn't be seen to be using a Daiwa pole even if I wanted to, but to be honest, why would I get rid of the MTX4 pole that I used to win that pole? So don't get me wrong, I think Daiwa do fantastic poles. They're right up there amongst the best. But do I think it's £3,000 better than my MTX4? Definitely not, and I'm more than happy using my MTX4. It's fantastic at 16 and 17 metres and silly lengths as well as it is short, and I've had 200-pound bags of fish and everything on it. So yeah, no problems at all with my MTX4. And the Daiwa pole just came out for a photo, and to be honest, I got absolutely inundated with offers for it without even asking. So 30 plus offers at least, which is unbelievable really. But yeah, so that's found a home somewhere else, and I'm more than happy with my MTX4. So right, I'm going to try and whiz through a few of these now. What we got? Oh right, this is a longer one actually. It's from Sandra Macara. I think there's a Scottish flag after the comment, so they might be in Scotland, I'm not sure. So when fishing on a slope using joker and leam, how do you stop balls of ground bait rolling away? There's a number of things to do. I used to do a hell of a lot of bloodworm and joker fishing. I've probably spent a good 10 years doing it for 4 or 5 months every winter, mostly on shallow canals and that. And my advice firstly is, do you need leam at all? If it's only shallow and it's not towing, try and feed it completely neat. Either raw out the paper or pop some just a dusting of grey leam to create a ball just to get it through that surface tension. That'll get it down and it'll break down and it'll sort of cascade down that slope lovely. So that's the first thing I'd ask. If you definitely want to feed it in lean, then don't make your balls round. Make them nice and flat or sort of oval shape, so they're less likely to roll down. And the other trick is to feed, if you're on a very steep gradient, feed a good ½ metre or even more shorter of where you're actually fishing. So then it's going to hit further up the slope, and hopefully it's going to break down and you're going to fish off the back of it or dead on the bait anyway. And there is one other tactic which Matt Godfrey used to be my assistant at Pole Fishing Magazine. We did a really nice tip feature at Packington actually on different ways of feeding. And one of his tips, and I actually asked him, "Are you serious?" And he was deadly serious. Is if it's really sloping badly, he put sticks through his balls of ground bait and leam and stuff. So big long sticks. So it went down and the sticks would stop it rolling. It looked absolutely daft, but to be honest, there was method in the madness, and I can see how it would work, but it's not something I would do. But if it was really sloping, then something like that, the little sticks or something through your balls would certainly stop it rolling. But to be honest, I'd rather feed a mix that is either flatter balls that aren't going to roll down, feed shorter, or feed a mix that's going to break down before it hits the bottom. So it's going to spread out before it hits the bottom and rolls down. So hopefully that's answered that. Right then, next question. Right, this is from Bart5800. Hi John, what are your recommendations for an entry-level pole for someone getting back into fishing, thinking around the £500 mark? And Mark Wibley has actually replied to that for me. Thank you very much, Mark. I got the MTX1 with 4 sets of hydro for 510 quid, and it's amazing. Yeah, that's a brilliant deal. So that was the pole I was going to recommend anyway. The Matrix MTX1 is about 500 quid for 13 metres with about 4 top kits. And, oh, got a bite. Yeah. Oh, I'm not sure if that's a perch. Yeah, the MTX1 anyway would be brilliant. This is the MTX2 I'm using today. What have we got? Oh, wow. I'm on strong gear, so I can... Oh, no. I was going to say I'm on strong gear, so I can swing that. Oh, and it's fell off. Never mind, that was a nice roach. Oh, dear. John. Never mind. It's not a match. Well, that was a good sign anyway. Nice roach on a bit of chopped worm. I'm not going to feed again. I'm just going to go straight back in. Awesome. So we've kind of not blanked. Yeah, so anyway, hopefully that's answered it. A nice 13 metre, as an entry level pole, 13 metres is a great length. You're going to struggle for that price. You'll struggle to get a pole that's longer than 14 metres that's usable at that length. So yeah, I'd look at the MTX1, and certainly right up there amongst the best in that price category. So, oh well, that's a good sign. We've got a roach anyway, so kind of. Oh, my notes have gone. Let's find my questions again. Right then. All right, this is from Bob. Just Bob, no surname. The GUC, which I'm assuming means the Grand Union Canal, is so clear where I am, and at times seems to hold no fish at all. And who would blame them? Any advice on spots to look for? Any advice on spots to look for, or tactics to draw a few fish in? I did have a pole, but not anymore. Well, you certainly catch a rod and line this time of year. You look how far out I'm fishing. You can certainly do that comfortably with a waggler rod. I wouldn't bother feeder fishing, but I'd certainly just use a little waggler or even a pole float on a rod and line would work. To be honest, at this sort of range. But yeah, as for where to look, I mean, I'm in a little spinny today. Oh, that's another bite. Wait for it. That was a definite bite. Go on. Hey up. Now then, what have we got here? That was a really slow bite. That's a better fish. Put my phone down a minute. Oh, a big perch. I'm definitely going to net that. Yeah. Brilliant. I don't knock my phone in. There we are. Awesome. Snaffled that. Oh yeah, he's got quite a bit of worm down his gullet as well. So we'll have another quick look, but we'll probably feed some more as well. Oh, look at that, he's angry. Let's pop him back. Yeah, as regards where to go on a canal, assuming you're in winter, I think sheltered spinnings like this, little wooded areas where it's all tight and nice and sheltered from predators above and everything, and also you get a little bit of warmth from the trees and everything. That's always a good place to head for. But generally, anywhere where there's boats, anywhere built up, head for the urban areas. That's where all the warmth is. That's where all the boats, and there's always extra warmth in urban areas than there is out in the sticks, out in the countryside at this time of year. So that's what I'd be doing. Marina entrances, anywhere you can get near a marina, assuming you can't get in the marina itself. You've also in places like the Grand Union, there's certainly a lot of zander in there now. So places where the zander have rounded the fish up, which is often up against lock gates or just before a tunnel or something like that. That's their prime places as well, where the zander have actually rounded the silverfish up in packs as they do. So, but yeah, look for wide areas as well, areas of boats. Urban areas where there's warmth, and anywhere where people are feeding the ducks as well. So they're the sort of places I'll be looking for. And another place to look for are dead reed beds as well. Even if there's no water over there and it's sort of only a foot, 2 foot deep, and you can see the bottom, the fish seem to hang around reed beds. I don't know if it's the food or the warmth or what, but they definitely like dead reed beds as well. So even if you're not fishing anywhere near the reeds, if you've got reeds in front of you, they seem to hold fish. Well, we've had a roach and a perch, so that's good. Keep laying that rig in. It's drifting a bit. We've had one boat through, which wasn't ideal, and it is a horrible milky colour, so it's just nice to actually be catching a few fish. Rig wise as well, I suppose we better go on about the rig. I've got a 0.3 gram hook, which is made for me by Pablo RWC floats. Awesome float. It's more of a carp float really, 2mm hollow tip, a nice sort of slim ovally body and a glass stem. Perfect for worm fishing, and certainly for this sort of game. And I've got, I'm actually fishing an 014 hook length to a 14, one of the new Matrix hooks, the MXB2, which is sort of a medium gauge hook, nice and sharp, just a real nice shape for worms, I think. And I'm fishing it a couple of inches over depth. Real positive rig. Don't know what I'm going to catch. If this was a match, I'd have a lighter rig on as well, it's like an 010 rig. I just turned the other way. That was. Go on, still there, still having a go. I was going to say I'm tempted to put a smaller bit of worm on, especially if I had with that roach I had at the start. This feels like another big perch. Feels about the same size. Yeah. Oh, it's bigger. Wow. Awesome. I wish I brought my keep net now. Let's put that phone there again. Wow, he's over a pound. Well over a pound. Go on. Wow. Look at that. Wow. Brilliant. So what have we had? 2 nice perch and a nice roach already. Awesome. Right, I am going to top up now, and then we'll check my cameras, make sure I've been recording. I've just got a big Kinder pot on. That's all I fed with. I didn't even bring my pole cupping kit today. Got a nice big dollop in again. attack it a little bit. It's only a short session. So chop worm, bit of castor, just dendrobenas. Another dollop, plop. All right, I'm going to check the cameras and then we'll answer a few more questions. Right, rock and rolling again. So I'll start off with a big bit of worm, and then I'm quite keen to try a small bit as well, but I'll start, because I've just fed, sort of two inch bit of worm. So 2 big perch and a roach that fell off. Bad angling with a roach. So that milky colour obviously hasn't put the fish off. I'm sure the scent's helped with the chopped worm going in. It took a good 5 minutes for him to find it. Right, this is from a Roger Carpenter. Could you please explain your technique with a plummet of how you ensure you are not boiling in on the wrong spot on rivers like the Thames, i.e. finding a clean bottom free of weed beds, large rocks, etc. Thanks for all your great content. Your passion for angling is highly infectious. Have a great Christmas. Well, thank you very much, Roger. Hope you have a good Christmas yourself. Yeah, plumbing it, it's very, very simple. Just put a nice big heavy plummet on. Somewhere like the Thames, actually you don't need a really heavy plummet because it doesn't flow a great deal. About 30 grams, absolutely fine. Sometimes 20, and just drag it around. Just drag it around. You've got a plummet where you'd like to fish, but you want to drag it around a good metre, 2 metre area, keep lifting and dropping and dragging it around. And I wonder if I did I filmed the 3-day Thames Festival, and my second day I was in Abingdon. I wonder if that's what's prompted you to ask that question, because oh, go on. Oh, I missed it. Yeah, that match at Abingdon, where I wanted to fish, I couldn't fish. It was unfishable. It was all over the place, and I actually hooked the head or the nozzle from a watering can that day. So there was obviously a load of rubbish. I don't know if it's fell off the back of a boat or what in front of me. So I had to fish a good 3-4 metres down the peg, or did I have to fish further up the peg than normal? Anyway, I had to go a good 3 or 4 metres away from where I actually wanted to fish. And that's purely from dragging my plummet around. And I even fished a bit further out than I wanted to fish as well. I'd love to have fished 13 metres, but I ended up, I think, fishing 15 metres, which is my 14.5 metres and my dolly. But just to get on what felt like a cleaner bottom, you want a nice area the size of a dustbin lid at least to present a rig nicely, and especially on a river when you're running it downstream. You want a nice sort of even sort of channel without any obstruction. So once you have plumbed up, take your plummet off and run your rig through a few times before the start of a match as well, or session, and you'll see if you can pick up anything that way as well. Sometimes a heavy plummet will pull straight through streamer weed. Take your plummet off and run it through, and you'll find you might be on a better streamer weed. So yeah, it's just about really sort of donking a plummet around. If you're on a faster flowing river, then you want a much bigger 40-50 gram plummet, really a really heavy plummet to dunk around. But yeah, about 30 gram plummet is absolutely ideal for me. I don't have any problems with that. Oh, I'm gutted I missed that bite. That was down the peg as well. It sort of drifted and then went under several times. It's definitely not flowing now, it's just stopped. So yeah, anyway, I hope that answers the question. You've just got to be really meticulous with your plumbing, and don't just plumb up where you want to fish. You've got to go 1/2 metre short and lean forward and 1/2 metre further out, and then up the peg and down the peg, and just keep dunking it around until you find somewhere that feels okay. But sometimes you'll get a snaggy bottom, and the only thing you can do is either hold the rig back hard. Ooh. That went down 2 inches and then came straight back up. Still playing with it. Yeah, sometimes all you can do is use a heavy rig and hold it back hard so it doesn't move at all, so you're not going to go into a snag. Or you shallow up and wow, or you shallow up and fish over the rough bottom. which is obviously going to be best for sort of roach and perch and species. This feels like a small perch. Yeah, played around with it for ages before it went under. Wow, this is turning into a good session. I was really anxious when I saw the colour. It's a horrible milky sort of colour, but the fish are obviously hungry. So, right, should we try a little bit of worm this time? Just an inch long bit of tail. Chucking the rest of it away. That goes in my chopping tub. A much smaller bit this time. Hopefully you can see that. See what we can catch. But I'm going to quickly put a great big bit. I might even put a full worm on next putting after this, depending on what we catch. I'm just quite keen to catch another silverfish if I can. But to be honest, if those big perch are about, then you can't beat a full worm or 2/3 of a worm. Right, just let that trundle through. So that's another one. Right then, Lee Cook. I am disabled and hoping to fish my first club match for years. It's a roach and rudd match. What is the best ground bait mix, or will softened 2mm and pellets be better? It's a mixed fishery. Well, I hope you do really well in your match. Welcome back to match fishing. I hope you do well. Roach and rudd match, that sounds really interesting to me. But and you mentioned ground bait mix or softened pellets. I wouldn't feed pellets at all for roach and rudd. There's a few venues I know where they do like pellets, but in the main you can't beat maggots or maybe casters. But this time of year, I just take a couple of pints of maggots. You're going to struggle to beat that for roach and rudd. Ground bait's purely optional. They'll definitely respond to a bit of ground bait. I wouldn't use a fish meal mix. I'd use something like Frenzied Hemp Match Black, which is very a dark, fine sort of hempy mix, purely for attraction. Just wait for this person to go by. Hiya. I think I had a bite whilst that was happening as well. Never mind. I'm paying attention to my phone more than my pole float. Oh yeah, that was a dink. Go on, go on. That's lifted and it's going. Ooh, hey up, way up. Might be a hybrid this. See, that was on a tiny bit of worm. This doesn't feel like a perch. What we got? Oh, hey, hey, hey. It's either a skimmer or a hybrid. Nearly knocked it off with my landing net. There we are. Told you, a little bit of worm. Awesome. And I don't mind an 014 rig. Look at that, cracker. Oh, yep, quite slimy. Look at that, Mecca. I hope I've got plenty more questions because I want to fish for a little bit longer. Awesome. Ugh. Oh, he was slimy. Where was I? Oh yeah, so maggots and casters. I'd probably feed just maggots, but if there's a lot of quality roach about and a lot of tiny fish and you want to swat the quality roach and rudd, then fish casters instead. But yeah, that's all I'd do. I'm still going to put a great big worm on this time. But yeah, very, very, very best of luck with your match. Now I'm going to hook that one through the head, just nip the very last bit off for a bit of scent, make him a bit more active. I wish this was a match. Catch double figures doing this, no problem. Right, just had to a little quick 5-minute interval whilst I sorted out my memory cards. Alright, I'm not fed again yet. I've just had that big skimmer, so let's see. Right, this is from Aaron Halson. Hopefully I've pronounced that right. Hi John, sometimes I'll be in a spot and constantly get bites and interest, but nothing that bends the rod or latches onto the fish. Would this prompt you to try in the same area but with different hook baits, or would you cast to a new area? Well, by that I'm assuming you're feeder fishing. I'm probably fishing a method feeder if you're waiting for something to hook itself and bend the rod round. Yeah, the first thing to do is definitely to change your hook baits. The most reliable thing to use is I use wafter style hook baits, dynamite washers. Most people use like the 7 and 9 mil sizes, but actually I'm a massive fan of the smallest 5 mils. I've caught my biggest fish this year on the smallest washers, so still with strong hooks and strong hook lengths, but a nice little hook bait. The aim was to catch everything, so if there was F1s or whatever in the peg as well, but actually I've been finding you're catching the bigger, warier fish on the tiniest hook baits as well. So that's been working really, really well for me. You've got to try and work out what are those. Are they missed bites? Are they drop bites? Is there a lot of silverfish in the peg? Are there F1s about that are playing with it and spitting it out? Is your hook too big? So you've got to ask yourself, is there small fish about? Is it skimmers? Is it roach? Is it F1s? Are you after carp? You know, you've got to ask yourself what you're after, and what else is in the peg, and what else could be causing the problems. If you think it's line bites, well, firstly, I'd slacken off. I wouldn't fish a really tight line. Sometimes, if they don't bump into the line so much, then it's not going to dislodge your feeder, and it leaves your feeder in the peg working for longer, and hopefully it will eventually go around with a proper bite. So I don't like to fish with a really tight line to the feeder if I can. Sometimes the venue's towing too much, or you're fishing so far out you can't avoid that. So that's another option. But the other option as well that would be going through my mind is maybe the fish are shorter than where I'm fishing. So drop it 3-4 meters shorter, or even more. Sometimes you'll keep getting liners and liners and liners, and I've had sessions where you think the fish are sort of 20-30 meters out. They're just like 8, 9, 10 meters out, especially on feeder only matches. So that's something to definitely consider, is maybe the fish, if you're getting line bites, is either fish in your peg or fish between you and the feeder. So those fish could be they could be a lot shorter than where you're fishing. So hopefully that answers that. Let's see, another one. Simon Chaddock, are you happy at Matrix? Yes, absolutely. Best company I've ever worked for. Really, really happy there. Yeah, I'd say, you know, if you look at the companies that are actually doing stuff really, really proactive and really on the ball, and with a great team and doing loads of media work and really, really good product development work, just bringing course fishing and match fishing forward, then you've got to put Matrix right up there. I think Guru and Preston do a very good job as well. But those are the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, very, very happy at Matrix. Great team, nice, young, enthusiastic team. No politics, no idiots or plonkers there or anything. It's great. Really, really enjoy it, and they look after me well, and I think I serve them well. So yeah. Let's see. This is from Daniel Bragg. Hey John, what on earth is a bolognese rig? Is there a garlic bread float too? Great video, mate. All joking aside, what is it, please? Yeah, well, I think I mentioned in my last Q&A a bolognese rig or a bolognese float. Basically, they are a big pole float. That's all they are. Generally 2 gram plus. It originates from Italy, where they fish the bolognese method, which is generally usually about a 6 meter telescopic rod, and it's a technique that you'll see used in a lot of international matches, particularly on rivers and deeper venues, and in warmer countries. But a bolognese rod is a telescopic rod, which usually 5, 6, 7 meters. Usually, say 6 meters is the most common length, and most commonly used on rivers. But they are used in England, but because we've got different conditions, we've got a lot more wet weather and everything. What people find is the line sticks to a bolognese rod a little bit more. So actually 17, 18, 20 foot rods have been developed for fishing bolognese tactics, but in UK weather conditions. So, but yeah, a bolo float is generally just a nice big river style pole float. But you could also use, oh, didn't know that was on, I was just about to twitch it. You could also use what you'd call in England an Avon float on the bolo. It's a very, very similar sort of concept really, an Avon style float. A nice big heavy, we have to net this, nice big heavy bulk. One dropper is often all you need. And yeah, it just sort of bosses the rig and gets it straight down and gets you straight in touch with a fish. Even if the venue, if the swim's quite shallow, you can catch on a bolognese rig. The Thames is a perfect example. It's absolutely infested with bleak and little chublets and things up in the water, so you've got to bosh it through. You want a real heavy 2-3 gram bolo rig to just bosh it straight through and straight down to the better fish underneath. If you fished a traditional waggler rig or a strung out stick float rig, it wouldn't get through all those fish. So the only way to fish is a real positive bolo rig. Plus they're really nice and easy to cast, really positive. You just underarm it or just flick it. You even cast them overhead with a bolo rig and just dunk it in. I'm going to put some more worm in. Seemed to work last time, and I'm going to put a little bit of worm on the hook because that's what I caught that bream stroke skimmer on. I think on a canal you'd call that a bream. So yeah, that's what a bolo rig is. And I mentioned bolognese style shotting or last time, and that's generally strung out shot that tapers and gets from the bulk. It gradually gets more and more spread out as it gets towards the hook. So it's a real sort of tapered finish. But that works best when you're using lead shot. And in England, we're not allowed to use lead shot that's bigger than a number 8. Whereas on the continent, they regularly use BBs, number 1s, number 4s, number 6s in lead, which is so much better and kinder to the line than the non-toxic alloy sort of shot that we have to use in England. So it's easier to do that nice tapered rig with lead shot, which we're not allowed to use in this country. But to be honest, I'm no expert on bolo fishing or Avon style fishing, but when I've done it, I've just used a nice big Olivet and a bulk of 2 or 3 number 8s, which are almost equivalent to like a number 4 or something like that as a dropper. Just a nice big bulk and a dropper. Actually, I'm just wondering now, I think I've got some bolo rigs in the top of my drawer. I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring this back and we'll have a look, because one of my recent sessions, I don't think I took them out. Yes! So these are bolo rigs. Aha, very lucky to find these. Right then, these are all bolo rigs. I'm going to lift them up and show you. That is an old MAP bolo rig, very similar to an Avon rig. You can see that, very thick tip, alloy stem. That's 3 gram. Nice for big baits and slightly more turbulent flows than that. And this is, oh, that's a very similar one. That's a Woody's bolo. What's that, 2.5 gram? These are ones I've tied up. We've just got an Olivet and a load of number 8s underneath. Most of those number 8s go straight under the Olivet. Just like I said, a bulk of 2 or 3 number 8s underneath. But that's a Woody's bolo, very, very similar. And these are Dave Harrell bolos, slightly slimmer, a bit more sensitive. And they're probably what I'd use on the Thames more than anything. And they're 2 and 3 gram. Yeah, 2 and 3 gram. So they're bolo floats. Just look like, basically, essentially, big pole floats. But you use them on a rod and line. And you need a bit more weight on a rod and line to actually be able to cast the bait out and control the rig and the flow. So there we are. I forgot I got those. Can't use them today on this canal. It's just over 4 foot where I'm fishing, and it's not even 5 foot down the middle. It's probably 4.5 foot straight down the middle. So it's a very, very shallow canal. I'm lucky we haven't had another boat go through actually. Alright, so I've got a little bit of worm on over that little dollop. See if we can answer a couple more questions. Stephen Peck. Hi John, some good Q&As. Can you recall your worst match where you have drawn a flyer but just got it all wrong? I try and put my worst matches behind me really and try and forget about them, but I've had quite a few bad matches this year. I don't think I fished great this year. I've had moments of where I fished very well and moments where I fished very, very poorly, and I've been very beatable this year, and to be honest, I am quite beatable at times. It depends how my head is. Rob Wotton always says, John, your head's on wrong, because sometimes my head's not on right. If things are going on in the background that you don't know. Lack of sleep and things, although my daughter does sleep now, which is a bit of a blessing. Let's put a nice big worm on. Oh, there's a medium worm. We'll put that on. Yeah, so I'd say I'm very, very beatable off the next peg sometimes, but other days I fish very, very well. So I think Darren Cox always said to me, you know, what we're always trying to do is strive for consistency, and sometimes I'm not very consistent at all, and I do have some bad matches, like we all do. But I think my biggest ever battering, sort of my worst ever match, I remember drawing next to Andy Geldart at Whiteacres on Polo Match Lake, which is one of my favourite lakes, and I've always done pretty well on there. I drew peg 10, which is the worst section, a reasonable peg in the worst section, but it was fishing really poor, and realistically, when it's fishing like that, 20-30 pound is your target, and you can often get that just fishing for skimmers and maybe an odd bonus carp, and that's what I set my stall out to do. I thought, well, if I can get 20, maybe 30 pound, I'll be top 3 in the section, job done. Andy Geldart got 30 pound after 20 minutes, and I think he ended up with over 100 pound and won the match. I was quite new to that lake at the time, and I never read the signs. I just assumed it was rubbish where we were, or wasn't fishing very well, and that was it. But there were fish rolling in front of us, but I never clocked that wasn't normal. And Andy clocked that for some reason they'd moved from the famous high bank in front of our pegs, or in front of Andy's peg. Andy was on peg 9 to my left, and I think actually peg 8 wasn't in there, between 9 and 7, and there was a load of fish there, and he's just gone out straight out, shallow and deep shallow with meat. I hadn't even took meat to my peg, and just absolutely mullered the fish. He probably had 50 pound in the first hour or two. And he did win the lake. And I tried to catch up, I tried to follow suit, and everything I did, I just caught small fish. When he caught an 8 pound carp, I caught a 2 pound carp. And to rub salt into the wounds, the guy to my right on peg 12, we were both fishing to peg 11 platform down the edge. Well, we're a platform apart. He's had 6 great big carp for probably 60 pound, maybe 50 pound. I've had 4 or 5 carp, and mine wouldn't have gone 15 pound. Everything I caught was small that day. It was just the weirdest day. And it absolutely bucketed down, and it was just a thoroughly miserable day. And I just got, from the moment we started, I'd got it all wrong. And that almost came up like a crayfish then. Unless it was a leaf. It wasn't a fish. It just came up and then dropped off. Might have been a crayfish. I'll just wait for this person to go by. Oh yeah. Canal's just starting to tow again now. I think another boat's coming. So yeah, the other match that springs to mind, where I wouldn't say I got it wrong or messed up a flyer, but it was a peg that could have so easily have been a flyer, was my second ever Fishermania qualifier. I was on Arena Pool at Cudmore, and all for the last couple of weeks in practice, and that the peg to draw would have been what we thought was peg 9 on the day. There was 2 banks of 8 for the first year of Fishermania. Rather than go all the way around the lake, they did 1 to 8 on one side and 9 to 16 on the other side. And all through practice, the peg that everyone wanted was peg 9. That's where everyone predicted it to be 1. And lo and behold, when we had the live draw the day before, that's the peg I drew. I drew peg 9. But what had happened, they swapped the pegs around. So 9 became 16 and 16 became 9. So my peg 9 ended up being the first peg. Everyone was channeled through the gap in the hedge to Arena Lake, so everyone was congregating around my peg, and the scoreboard was really close to my peg. All the noise and everything. That's a bite. Yeah. And yeah, my peg became the noisiest, most disturbed peg on the lake, and Mick Bull's on peg 16 won Fishermania. I'll be able to swing that. I can't help but think if I was on that peg, I'd like to think I'd have won Fishermania too. Mick fished a brilliant match that day. Fished very, very similar tactics to how I would have fished it. But yeah, I think that's one that got away. I could have been Fishermania champion if they'd have kept the peg numbers how they were. Never mind. Never mind. Can't be lucky all the time. Right then. To be honest, I was in another Fishermania final after that on the same lake, and I drew in front of the commentary box, and Shane Atkin won that year, and I was the furthest angler away from him that day. So not been very lucky on Fishermanias, but there's only one person who is. Another little dollop of worm, just a little dollop this time. Flick it that way this time. Our planes today. Right, where are we? Not many more questions. Damo Townsend. Hi John, what's your opinion on £400 plus weights in match fishing? Good or bad? It's okay. I had £477 at Decoy Lakes. Absolute one-off match. Feet I'll never ever repeat in my life. Definitely a match of a lifetime. I think as a one-off, then yeah, it's something I'll never ever forget. Is it something I want to do every week? No. Is it something I want to do every month? No. I wouldn't be disappointed if I never caught £400 ever again. I think those sorts of weights are massive and a little bit obscene perhaps, but that's the nature of commercial fishing. Some venues are absolutely run with fish, but I don't generally fish venues that are that prolific. I'd rather catch sort of 20 carp for £100, or I don't know, 60 F1s for the same weight, or £70 mixed bag. You know, they're the sort of matches I'd like to fish where I've got time to enjoy the fishing and actually work at it. I don't particularly enjoy absolute speed races where you're absolutely shattered afterwards and your head's all frazzled afterwards because you're just exhausted for 5 hours non-stop bagging. I'd actually like to sit and work and wait a little bit for my bite and everything. So I tend to fish those sorts of matches. And Decoy Lakes, where I had that weight, they have had big weights like that before, but generally £200 is a good weight there, and sometimes 150 and that's a lot more realistic. But even then, you know, I used to always think sort of 20 carp for £100 or £120. That's a nice day's fishing in my book. It's all relative, you know. So similarly, I don't really want to catch 1,000 bleak or 1,000 dace or 500 roach or whatever. I have had 500 roach in a match before, or several matches, but I'd rather win with 150 roach or something like that. You know, you need to enjoy the fishing. It's not. I don't particularly enjoy speed races. I just don't think you get time to enjoy the actual fishing part of it. But it's nice when you're on them, and it's certainly an experience when you do catch those big numbers of fish. Right then, let's see what else we got. Ralph Cutler says, really enjoyed the video, learned a lot. What's Katie getting from Santa? Too much. She's more and more dollies as usual. She's getting a cooker, not a real one, although I think she'd like one. And but no pink fishing rod just yet, not quite, maybe next year. Brian Crocker, John, what's your best location to fish in the country? I just like anywhere nice, peaceful and quiet, nice surroundings, not noisy. You don't want busy roads around you or too many aeroplanes flying above like we've had today. Just nice places where it's not a slog to get there, and you can have a nice day's fishing. You don't know what you're going to catch next. They're the sorts of venues I like. I particularly like Cornwall. I love fishing whiteacres. I think the fishing's quite hard down there at times, but it's interesting because there's big perch, there's Carasio, there's barbel, there's F1s, there's loads of nice quality roach and that. And it's quite a clear venue. Quite a lot of the lakes are quite clear, so the fish look nice as well. Closer to home, Packington Fishery, beautiful venue. Again, very clear. The F1s in there are stunning. When they get over 3 and 4 or 5 pound, they're absolutely stunning. Really handsome fish with big humps on the backs and stuff. And the carp look really good and everything. And it's just a nice, quiet, peaceful place. Interesting fishing. Bit of more rod and line fishing, waggler fishing. You know, they're the sort of venues I enjoy. But I like my rivers, and I love my canals as well. So, but yeah, Packington closer to home, and Cornwall if I have to travel anywhere. So I think that's it. Shall we see if we can catch one more fish? I'm sure there's one more fish in the peg. That might be a little wobble then. I've hardly had to twitch it really. I've just been laying it in and laying it in and laying it in. Not too much dragging and twitching. My head's telling me to refeed, but I only want one more fish. We'll just see if we can catch one, see if there's one lurking in the area. But really, I think they want a bit more bait. You never know, there might be something hanging around. Don't want to murder some more worms unnecessarily. That's something's dragging it upstream, getting away with it. 1, 2, 3. What we got? Ah, a little perch. That'll do. That'll do me. You want to swing that? Oh, he snaffled that. There you are. Cracking little perch. Nice chunky little specimen. And oh, he's not too deeply hooked. Should be able to get that out, no problem. There you are. Brilliant. Pop him back. And keep the questions coming, and I'll hopefully keep trying to find some nice places to fish whilst I'm answering a few questions for you. Thanks for watching.